What is audit program? Audit program is the procedures selected in the planning stage form the basis of the audit program. Importance of audit program. 1. To guide the staff in audit work. 2. To provide evidence of proper planning and recording audit work. 3. It's a basis for coordinating and supervising audit and controlling time spent. Items that should be included in audit program are: 1. The nature, timing and extent of planning audit procedures to be used at the assertion level for material class of transactions, account balances and disclosure. Each of them should be tailored to meet the circumstances of client. 2. Development of time budget. 3. Assignment of audit staff. 4. Scheduling of dates. Types of audit program. There are two types of audit program. 1. Standardized audit program. It is a pre-prepared listing of objectives and tests which may be used in any audit. It's a consistent approach to all audits and it will reduce the risks that procedures omitted. 2. Tailored audit program. Some audit program need to tailor to the specific circumstances of an engagement. The design of the audit procedures to be followed match exactly to the actual system of the entity. References can be made to particular document or procedures.
Audit documentation is a record of audit procedures performed, relevant audit evidence obtained, and conclusions the audit reached. Next, why audit documentation is important. First, to provide sufficient and appropriate record of basis for the audit report. Second, as evidence that the audit was planned and performed in accordance with applicable legal and regulatory requirements. Third, to assist audit team to plan and perform the audit. Lastly, to demonstrate the accountability of the audit team for its work. Types of files. There are two types of files. 1. Permanent files which are used as a base for planning future audit. For example, charts of accounts and organizational chart. Another one is current files which includes all files or working paper in the current year audit. For example, journal entries and audit plan. Let's proceed on preparation of working papers. Working papers means an auditor's record of the work performed and conclusion received on the audit. As you can see, these are the reason on why do we need audit working papers. The first one is the working paper is a basis for planning the audit, also it is to record the evidence accumulated and the results of audit tests. The working papers provides data for determining the proper type of audit report. It is also a basis for review by supervisors and partners. Working papers are evidence audit works being performed in accordance with approved auditing standards. Function of working papers include: aid in planning and performance of the audit, supervision of the audit, support of the audit report, check the weakness of internal control. Ownership and confidentiality. Ownership is a state or fact owning something, while confidentiality is a state of keeping or being kept for secret or private. Working papers are a confidential information. It is prepared during audit engagement and it is the property of the auditors and retained at auditor's office. Working papers can only be provided to the third parties with express permission of the client. Appropriate procedures should be undertaken to maintain confidentiality and safe custody of working papers. Working papers should be retained for a sufficient period of time to meet regulatory requirement. Now it's time to discuss about internal control. It means to adopt within business to safeguard its asset, check the accuracy and reliability of its accounting data. Responsibilities of management and auditor. Management are responsible in internal control for establishing and maintaining the control environment, while the auditor are responsible to perform evaluation and are making recommendation for improved controls.
Objectives of internal controls.
Firstly, to prevent errors and frauds. Secondly, to prevent misuse of goods and cash. To ensure accuracy and reliability of records. To safeguard assets. and for effectiveness and efficiency of operations.
Components of internal controls. The first one is risk assessment. It is the process to identify, analyze and manage risks. Control environment involves overall attitude and actions of management. Control activities involves the policies and procedures established by management. Other than that, information and communication is method to identify, communicate external and internal information. Lastly, monitoring is the assessment of the effectiveness of operations.
Moving on to evaluation of internal controls. It involves examination of effectiveness of an organization's internal controls.
Steps in evaluation process. Firstly, determine types of controls used by client. Secondly, determine which controls will auditor rely on. Thirdly, determine which audit procedures should be expanded or reduced. Lastly, recommend ideas to client on how to improve internal controls.
Next is assessment and documenting understanding of internal controls. Audit documentation should clearly identify each component of the internal control. It should show, first, how each significant control is tested. Second, the sampling approach and the size of the sample used in testing. Third, the conclusions of the tests. Fourth, the auditor's conclusion about the effectiveness of the control. And fifth, the implications for the audit of related financial account balances. Letter of management. What is letter of management? Is a letter by auditor to management at the end of his audit work, listing any weaknesses in the design or operation of the internal control system which may have come to his attention, explaining the significance and the effect on current and future financial statement, and make suggestions as the ways these weaknesses can be removed or reduced. In letter of management consist of 7 things, which are: first, purpose of the letter. Second, purpose of the internal control investigation. Third, disclaimer or clause that the weaknesses notified are not necessarily all the weaknesses that may exist. Fourth, weaknesses. Fifth, recommendations for improvement. And lastly, request info on remedial action.